Future Growth and Vision Network. This is my Car Chat podcast, and today I want to defend colleges and universities. Why? Because they are under attack right now. They're under attack for several different reasons. One, they're being labeled as places of indoctrination. Their value is being looked at as to whether they are valuable or not. There has been a long-standing battle between them and the technical centers, and I want to just go ahead and talk about the different issues surrounding universities and colleges. And I will tell you, I'll critique them as well, tell you what they do well, what they don't. And I think that that's important, but I really want to talk about the value of that education and why it's a little bit different than some of the other educations that are out there, it's different than a trade school. It's different than an apprenticeship. It's different than a certain ways of learning. And so I think they're valuable, but I want to make sure that you see why colleges and universities are important. First, let's start with what exactly is a college and university and what do they do. So their job is to ultimately take a student, and the first thing that happens is they have to do what they call general education requirements. Education requirements are essentially a baseline that every college student has to take. They're things like Comp 1, Comp 2, American history, it's like psychology, sociology, math, science, all those things. So you have a baseline that everybody that is in college has had those courses. Then their junior and senior year, they take courses in their major, which they have to pick a major. And most colleges and universities have a lot of different majors, so it depends on which college you want to go to as to which one that has the best major in that area. For example, forensics, University of Central Oklahoma is known for their forensics program. You got OU known for their law program, petroleum engineering, OSU for agriculture, also finance. And so you have all these different places you can go to depending on which school you want to attend. But now there's also community colleges or two-year colleges. They are a lot of times located in urban and rural settings. The students are within about 25 miles of their colleges, and the average age is about 26. So they are people that are going back to school. They do a 2-year degree, then they transfer into a university setting, and they are incredible for students that are coming back. They're incredible for students that want a more student-focused education, and maybe they're looking at going from that directly into a career. Why should you get a college degree? That is a great question. The reason is that it teaches a level of critical thinking. And I think critical thinking is important, and people don't always look at that. What they look at is, indoctrination. Indoctrination, one of the things that a university will do is they will teach you to question everything. I think that is the difficulty. That is the hard part for people that are going to a university or a college. Why? Because what happens is you come in with a set of beliefs. You come in with a set of ideas, a set of thoughts. Whether it's where you're from, it could be your home country, it could be a rural area that you're from, it could be that you have come with a set of beliefs that your parents have given you, your grandparents have given you, you've been raised in. And so when you get onto campus, one of the first things they start doing is they start introducing you to people that you've never met before. They start introducing you to different cultures, different foods. Then they start teaching you things. And they teach you things that maybe you haven't learned. A good example, when I was younger, Columbus was a whole different human being. He was this great explorer that came coming through. He came into the United States and discovered America. Then I started reading about what Columbus did and the actual brutality of what he did. And I was shocked. I had no idea, but I learned it when I was young. Hello, is it Chloe? Chloe Holcomb, it's nice to have you on my podcast. So it is very important, and it really is important that I learned that. Why? Because it gave me a more real view of what history was. So I really hope that it is something that you have a chance to go into the university system and let them go ahead and teach you and educate you. Why do they want to do that? Because they need to make you be able to make decisions around an issue that comes up. So if you're in a business setting and there's a problem, you can't just be like, well, what do you want me to do? You have to be able to analyze the situation, give them different ideas that will work, and then execute that decision and make it work. Make sure that and find out whether it worked or not, evaluate it, and check on what's happening next. Well, that's great and wonderful when it's a very basic business decision or a decision that you have to make that is not a social decision. Then it becomes very, very different. So the next time that you make a decision, it may be a moral decision. It may be what you think and believe. So what happens is they will bring you in, then they'll start challenging your assumptions. This is where people get upset because their students come in as 18-year-olds or around that age, and then we start to ask them questions about what they believe. And we don't only ask them about what they believe, but we ask them why they believe it. So it's not a matter of, oh, I just believe it because my mom and dad told me. I want to know why you believe it. Well, when you start asking the why questions, then they have to then look at why they believe it. So they start to question what they believe and their assumptions. When they're doing that, it allows for them to really think about, is this right or wrong? Is this something I should believe or not believe? Is this something that I need to believe at this time? Or maybe hear different perspectives from different people and I change my mind. Once I change my mind and then I go back home and mention it to my family, there's an interesting reaction. There's two different kinds of reactions. One reaction, they go, oh my gosh, you've learned a lot. Congratulations. Great. There's a second reaction. That second reaction, you take that home and you start talking about it. They're like going, oh my God, have not learned anything, or you're learning something I disagree with, and you need to leave that institution. Or they'll go home and they'll use vocabulary that they've been learning because they learn it in their classes, and they start talking a different way. When they do, they go home, their family starts to ask them questions like, oh, you think you're smart now. So no, they've just been educated. They've been in the college setting. They're learning, and they're using the vocabulary that they learned. They're not going home to be rude. They're not going home to show you up. They're just literally going in there to see, hey, this is something I've learned, and I'm excited, and this is who I am now. And so let's visit and let's learn together. And maybe they'll bring you information, and you can teach them information and communicate back and forth. That's fantastic. Politically, now I will say, and this is not a lie, in the political world, the higher your education, you do tend to have a more liberal view of things. Now, that doesn't mean anything as far as you can be very rural, very conservative, and have high education too, or you can be very, not go to school at all and be very liberal as well. So you can be all those things. There are exceptions, but we tend to see a liberalizing of that. So sometimes the question becomes, is it the institution that did it, or is it the education that did it? I'm going to leave that up to you. What do you think? Do you think it's the institution that is teaching you, or is it the education? I have disagreed with my professors. I think it's important to do that. I do that in a respectful way, but we have disagreements. We have arguments. We will go back and forth. I have been on all parts of the political spectrum. So ultimately, I've argued with my conservative professors. I've argued with my liberal professors on both sides of the issues. Why? Because I think it's important. I also can understand that I take an issue, I will break it apart, and I will look at it. If I were this person, what would I think? If I were that person, what would I think? If I were looking at it from this area, what would I think? So all those things are very, very different. So I hope that it's something that, again, you look at. Now, at the same time, let me talk about some of the issues with universities and colleges. They're expensive. They're very expensive. So the hard part is, if you're looking at, is it worth the money? That's an interesting question. That's one that I'm thinking we need to look at cost. We need to look at whether we're giving you materials that you don't need. I think it's important to do that. I think, are we in a space race? Meaning, are we building buildings just to compete with the school down the street? What's the difference between online schools and not? My wife teaches at a private religious school, so that's very different. So it's one of those things that are just very, very different. So we have, again, different ways that you can get your education. Now, internationally, coming to the United States, we've had students from all over the world. Not as many this year. I can't imagine why. But ultimately, we have people, international students come in here. We've had them come in here, like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia pays for their students to come here. But they get to pick their major. Like, it's usually like engineering or industrial safety or something that they need, because then ultimately you go back home and you work in the industries that they have essentially paid for you to go to school. So that's kind of different. We also have students that come in just to have the experience of being in the United States. Don't have to pass the class, just be in the United States system, and then they go back home and then they bring that information back. And I think that's important too, because again, our relationships with international students and international countries is important and very important. So I really am again, an advocate for this because I really want students to do well. I also have worked with students that were on the verge of being thrown out. They didn't do well. They had a hard time, whether it was relationship issues or it was they weren't ready or they were too young, they were immature, they had work, they had trauma that happened, and all those things that are happening. So it's one of those things that we are working to kind of get that, you know, and then get them back on track and really teach them basic skills. These are some basic skills that you need. You need test taking, you need stress management, time management, and I mean, those are all things that if you don't have that, you need to get that. Because if you don't have those things, you're not going to make it through a university setting. We're not going to make it through a lot of work settings either. But there's also first year courses. They get you as a bridge into the programs. They're also very important because they can help you build community and guide you through the process. I think that they are very, very valuable. They don't tend to be terribly very long, but they give you a network of people to be in the university with you, and it lets you know what's happening. Economically, universities are hugely important. Why? Because they are a place where you will network. There's some companies that won't even let you in the door unless you have a college degree. That's just the reality of the situation. So there are things that you have to get a degree in order to go in. I people ask me, why do you get a degree? Why would you do that? One of the big reasons, you can accelerate your salary quicker. Why? Because ultimately, you'll have a pace that you'll go if you're going from high school to apprenticeship to leadership, and then it's quite a bit slower. Where if you go through a university system, they usually will skip a step and it accelerates quicker, and so the overall value of your degree goes up. Now, I will say this: I'm not going to sit here and tell you that your degree is worth an X amount of dollars. It's not. It's not worth anything until someone pays you. And I think that's something that students need to learn is that you're not worth anything until you get paid. So once that paycheck comes in, you know what you're worth. So that is an important thing to think about, is to really look at, okay, what degree am I getting it in? Is it in an industry that is going to survive? That's a new thing that we have to think about. With AI, there's a lot of people that wanted to go be computer programmers, which is fantastic, except what happens if AI takes your job? Then is it necessary? I'm like, I mean, with online programs, we saw a lot of teachers that also weren't needed in some instances. So we have to always look at what is coming next, kind of project into the future, and then look at that and say what works and what doesn't. So I really hope that you look at the idea of a university and college. If it's something that you want to go to leadership, you want to run a company, you want to challenge your beliefs or do something different, or you're just ready to kind of push yourself, I think it's amazing. I recognize, again, it's expensive. I recognize that it can be a unique experience. But at the same time, I think it's so valuable for us to really look at who we are. And I think sometimes leaving the house, living on campus, being around other people, challenging, building networks, those are people that you will be around the rest of your life. They are people that you'll meet. One person I met was very, very special. It is my wife. So she was a freshman in college when I was a senior at the time, and it's been incredible, and I couldn't do it without her. So it was an amazing thing that happened, and it was not my intention, by the way. But it happened that we met each other, and she's incredible and about to finish her PhD, so she's just rocking it out. So I'm super, super excited. I am biased in that I taught for colleges and universities, and I've been through the college and university system. I will say that. So please check it out. Please look at it. Look at the universities and colleges near you. See if it's important to you. See if your job requires it, and go check them out and get in those programs, get scholarships and everything that you need, and make it happen.